You're there, laughing when they laugh, nodding when they speak. But when the eyes scan the room, they slide right past you, as if your existence never registered. You're not hated, not even disliked. You're something worse, forgotten. There is a cruelty in being overlooked that doesn't announce itself like ridicule or rejection. It's quiet, soft, and slow, like the way wallpaper fades over time until no one remembers it was once bold. You don't cause discomfort. You don't inspire interest. You simply don't register. You begin to wonder, what is it that makes some people magnetic while others disappear in plain sight? Why do some command silence the moment they speak, while others have to raise their voices just to be heard, and still aren't? It's not intelligence. It's not kindness. It's not even appearance. You've seen them. People who aren't especially beautiful, who aren't particularly brilliant, yet they pull focus like gravity. And you feel like background noise in your own life. The paradox is maddening. Society tells you to be yourself. But what happens when yourself is invisible? When authenticity feels like exile? When the genuine you isn't loud enough to cut through the static? No one teaches you how to be seen. It's not on the curriculum. It's not part of therapy. It's not whispered by friends who are too busy basking in their own visibility. Being ignored is not classified as trauma, but it leaves scars all the same. Scars shaped like empty chairs and unanswered texts. And slowly, you begin to adapt. You make yourself smaller, quieter. You become the person who takes the photo but is never in it. The one who is thanked as an afterthought. Oh, right. And of course, thank you. What's your name again? There's a myth that presence is natural, that charisma is a divine gift, that either you have it or you don't. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood that power, true influence, is rarely born. It's built, engineered, strategized. He wrote not for the noble, but for the overlooked, for the shadowed figure who would dare to reshape the stage rather than exit it quietly. So, if you're tired of the ghost role, if you're done auditioning for the background of your own social life, then it's time to burn the script. Not with loud desperation, but with cold precision. Because being seen isn't a request, it's a tactic. And the first step is understanding the brutal game you're actually playing. It's a cruel truth. In the modern social arena, being liked is optional. Being noticed is essential. We live in an era where relevance isn't tied to virtue, intelligence, or even contribution. It's tethered to visibility. Not who you are, but what you appear to be. Not what you offer, but what others perceive you offering, even if it's an illusion. You may be the most thoughtful person in the room, but if your presence doesn't register within the first few seconds, you are socially erased. This is the brutal economy of attention. And attention, like any currency, follows manipulation more readily than merit. You've probably felt it. That sinking sensation when someone less competent, less kind, less interesting commands a room like it owes them something. And the part that twists like a knife? Everyone plays along. They laugh too loud. They nod too eagerly. They orbit the loudest planet, regardless of gravity. So where does that leave you? The one who hoped that consistency would earn respect, that authenticity would eventually shine through, that people would see you without you having to scream? They won't. Not unless you shift. The reality is this: social circles are rarely meritocracies. They're ecosystems of power perception, and performance. And if you don't learn how to play that game, not just ethically, but strategically, you will always be outranked by those who do. This isn't a call to abandon your values. It's a challenge to weaponize them. You don't have to become someone else, but you do have to become seen, and seen on your own terms, not theirs. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to flatter. He wrote to unveil, to show that survival belongs not to the most righteous, but to the most aware, to those who understand that visibility is the first gate to influence, and silence its grave. So now we step into the arena, not as beggars of attention, but as tacticians. Here are the 7 Machiavellian tactics to stand out, not just louder, but smarter. Tactic 1. Master the theater of perception. In every room, there's a stage. You may not see it, but it's there, etched into the floorboards of human instinct. Social gatherings, office meetings, friend groups, even digital spaces. They are all theaters, and whether you know it or not, you're always playing a role. The first Machiavellian tactic to stand out is to consciously choose your costume, script, and spotlight, because those who don't perform are condemned to be part of the audience, watching their own irrelevance unfold. But here's the paradox. The more real you appear, the more crafted you must be. Think of the most charismatic person you know. They don't stumble into presence. They orchestrate it. Their words are measured, their silence is calculated, their gestures deliberate. And yet, it feels natural. That's the trick. It always feels natural. Never is. You must become the director of your own perception. Study how you enter a room. Your posture is the opening act. Your facial expression is the tone setter. Your eyes, are they scanning for approval or asserting quiet dominance? Are you shrinking into corners or cutting diagonals across the floor with your presence? These aren't superficial choices. They are psychological signals, codes the social brain deciphers instantly. Human beings respond to status cues, often unconsciously. A subtle pause before speaking, a slower blink rate, a quiet confidence that doesn't chase laughs but attracts silence. These microsignals speak louder than actual words. But here's where most get it wrong. They try to mimic others. They borrow someone else's role and forget their own script. The goal isn't to copy charisma. It's to construct your own archetype. Are you the enigmatic outsider, the intellectual provocateur, the cold strategist, the warm oracle? Each one has power, but only if worn like a second skin, not a Halloween mask. Machiavelli warned that to rule perception, you must appear virtuous while being calculating. Not deceitful, but strategic. Perception isn't about faking. It's about framing. A painting is not false because it's composed. It's powerful because it's composed. So construct your character, not for deception, but for dominance. You are not a ghost. You are an actor who has memorized every shadow in the room and knows how to stand in the light just right. Because, in the theater of perception, those who disappear are those who refuse to perform. Tactic 2. Weaponize scarcity. We crave what retreats. We chase what withholds. We mythologize what we can't quite grasp. Human psychology is brutal in its simplicity. The more accessible you are, the less value you appear to have. The more frequently you're around, the more your presence becomes ambient noise, tuned out like the hum of a refrigerator. This is not malice. It's biology. Scarcity is the illusion of importance. It creates mystique, cultivates desire, and triggers one of the oldest impulses in the social brain. If others want it, and I can't have it easily, it must be valuable. So ask yourself, have you been too available? Too quick to respond? Too eager to be included? In social circles, this isn't interpreted as loyalty. It's seen as a signal. You need them more than they need you. And in the social marketplace, neediness is the scent of weakness. Machiavelli would advise, let your presence feel earned, not assumed. Withdraw strategically. Skip a gathering without excuse. Delay your replies. Let others wonder, not out of spite, but out of control. Create empty space around you that demands to be filled. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about reprogramming the social dynamic. When you're always there, you're consumed mindlessly. When you're occasionally absent, you're remembered deliberately. Distance breeds desire. Silence breeds speculation. And speculation breeds power. Scarcity also redefines your yes. When you say yes to everyone, your time is worth nothing. When your yes is rare, it becomes a gift. People begin to notice when you speak. They begin to measure your approval. They seek your attention instead of assuming it. But beware, scarcity must be balanced with impact. A rare presence that offers nothing becomes irrelevance. A rare presence that changes the tone of a room becomes legend. So learn the dance of absence and arrival. Fade just enough to be missed. Speak just enough to be remembered. Decline just enough to become pursued. You are not background noise. You are a limited edition. And what is rare is revered. Tactic 3. Disrupt predictability. Predictability is safe. It's polite. It's digestible. It is also a death sentence in social psychology. When people know what you'll say before you say it, when your reactions follow a script, when your presence feels like a loop, they stop seeing you. They start placing you in a mental file marked reliable, ignorable, replaceable. Because here's the truth. The human brain is designed to conserve energy. It filters out patterns that no longer stimulate. That includes people, especially people. If you've ever wondered why you're the one whose comments get politely skipped in conversations, whose suggestions are noted but never acted on, whose stories never seem to land, it may be because they've already built a mental model of you, and you've never challenged it. Machiavelli didn't just advise rulers to be cunning. He warned them never to become expected, to disrupt, to surprise, to make people uncertain about what comes next. Because uncertainty commands attention, you must learn to be socially unpredictable, not erratic, but unsettling in your potential. Break the rhythm they've placed you in. If you're the quiet one, speak with sudden intensity. If you're the agreeable one, disagree with precision. If you're the helper, withhold help, and watch how quickly the room recalibrates. Not to harm, but to signal. I am not a given. I am a variable. Every disruption you create rewrites the script others have cast you in. And every rewrite is a new chance to be seen with fresh eyes. Psychologists call this the violation of expectation effect. It's why a normally gentle person who gets angry shocks us more than someone who's always on edge. The deviation spikes emotional arousal, creates memorability, and forces reevaluation. You must become your own paradox. Let them think they figured you out. Then let the ground shift beneath them. Controlled unpredictability is not chaos. It is choreography. A disruption isn't a breakdown, it's a reveal. The kind that shakes complacent perceptions and says, I'm not who you assumed I was. Because once people can no longer predict you, they can no longer ignore you. Tactic 4. Mirror and manipulate the tribe. Every group, whether a workplace, a friend circle, or a digital community, forms an unspoken tribe. And every tribe, no matter how modern or sophisticated, obeys primal instincts. Protect the familiar. Expel the foreign. Follow the charismatic. If you've ever felt ignored within a group, it's not always because you lack substance. It's often because you haven't mirrored the tribe's identity. You haven't signaled, I am one of you. And so, they forget you. Because evolution taught them to. Machiavelli understood the power of imitation, not as flattery, but as infiltration. To stand out socially, you must first be accepted. To be accepted, you must first reflect what they recognize, not mindlessly, strategically. You must mirror the tribe, not to disappear, but to disarm. People trust those who reflect them. The cadence of speech, the body language, the topics of interest. These are subtle tribal codes. Mirror them, and you are safe. But once inside, the real tactic begins. You reshape the tribe from within. Think of it like social judo. Use their momentum, their language, their norms, until you're no longer an outsider begging for relevance, but a subtle architect of the group's center of gravity. Mirror their jokes, their tone, their tempo. Then begin to shift the focus, elevate the conversation, introduce your ideas in their dialect. Influence without announcing influence. This is how cult leaders form followings, how power players change the energy in rooms. They don't demand attention. They reroute the collective attention toward them by acting as a reflective surface that slowly becomes a magnet. But beware, this is not about submission. It's about seduction. If you bend too far, you snap. If you imitate too fully, you vanish into mimicry. The art lies in blending just enough to be trusted, then injecting difference just enough to be remembered. You become the familiar strange, the one they recognize yet can't quite define. Because in tribal psychology, the most powerful figure is not the loudest, but the one who seems eerily aligned and subtly in control. Tactic 5. Engineer strategic vulnerability. Vulnerability is power, but only when it's chosen, not leaked. Most people misunderstand vulnerability. They treat it like a confessional, spilling raw emotion in hopes of connection. But uncontrolled vulnerability repels more than it attracts. It overwhelms, burdens, exposes. In a world where most are drowning in their own chaos, few want to carry someone else's. But Machiavellian vulnerability, strategic vulnerability, is something else entirely. It is crafted honesty, a revelation with a purpose, a wound shown, not to bleed, but to influence. Why is this so powerful? Because people connect most deeply, not with perfection, but with controlled imperfection. When you reveal something personal, something real but not paralyzing, you invite empathy, not pity. You bridge the gap between mystery and intimacy without collapsing into desperation. It humanizes you just enough to disarm defenses while still holding your posture of control. The key is timing. Vulnerability too early, and you signal instability. Too late, and you seem robotic. But at the right moment, when trust is spudding, when stakes are shifting, you reveal just enough truth to shift perception. You go from the forgettable extra to the memorable character with a backstory. Think of leaders, artists, Icons. The ones we remember are not just strong, they're scarred. They've suffered, and they've owned that suffering without drowning in it. They narrate their struggles as origin stories, not therapy sessions. So ask yourself, what pain, mistake, or flaw could be repurposed as a point of connection? Not the rawest one, save that for silence, but the one that reveals depth, the one that makes someone lean in instead of back away. And just as importantly, who do you reveal it to? Strategic vulnerability is not for the group. It's for the right pair of eyes in the right moment to create the right ripple. Because once someone feels they've seen a side of you others haven't, you become more than a name. You become a presence. And presence is what ghosts don't have. Tactic 6. Hijack the gossip economy. No one wants to admit it, but gossip is currency. It's the blood that runs through the veins of every social group. People may call it venting, updating, or sharing, but strip away the euphemisms, and what remains is raw, unfiltered narrative exchange. Who did what? Who said what? Who matters? And if your name is never in circulation, you don't exist in the tribe's subconscious. This is where most make a fatal mistake. They avoid gossip entirely, thinking it makes them righteous. But Machiavelli would scoff at such moral purity. To be morally clean but socially invisible is a fool's bargain. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the rumor mill, but you must understand it. And more importantly, hijack it. Not through scandal, through narrative. People talk about what is emotionally sticky, what's unexpected, charged, or symbolically loaded. So you must become anecdote-worthy, not just liked, but talked about in your absence. Not through controversy, but through curated mystique. Be the person who says one line that no one forgets, who leaves early with a reason no one can quite confirm, who drops a story with just enough detail to spark whispers, but not enough to satisfy them. Give them fragments, pieces of a puzzle that's always missing the final corner. And above all, inject yourself into other people's stories. Help them in ways they'll retell. Interrupt moments they'll quote. Witness events they'll need you to verify. This makes you indispensable in the social narrative, a recurring character in the series of their lives. But beware, gossip is a serpent that bites both ways. If you feed it recklessly, you become a scandal, not a symbol. Never gossip down, never punch low. Plant seeds, not grenades. The goal is to become a name that passes lips with curiosity, not contempt. Hijack the gossip economy with elegance. Be the shadow in the story, the unsolved question, the conversation that continues long after you leave the room. Because when your name lives inside their conversations, you've already won half the battle of visibility. Tactic 7. Erect a myth around your persona. The world remembers stories, not statistics, symbols, not specifics, and if you want to escape the fate of being forgettable, you must cease being merely human. You must become a myth. This is the final, most powerful tactic. Erect a myth around your persona, not to deceive, but to transcend. People don't follow personalities. They follow legends. They remember figures, not faces. They whisper about myths, not names. So ask yourself, what do I represent? Not what you do, not where you're from, but what archetype do you embody in the minds of others? Are you the one who rose from quiet beginnings to sudden dominance? The one who always knows more than they say? The one who disappears for weeks, only to return with strange knowledge or uncanny timing? These are not traits. These are myth fragments, and they are what keep people obsessed. Machiavelli understood the power of spectacle, not just in politics, but in perception. When the public sees you as a construct greater than your physical self, they attribute meaning to your every action. Silence becomes wisdom. Mystery becomes danger. Flaws become poetic. This myth must be seeded carefully, through curated anecdotes, through rare, powerful gestures, through contradictions that never resolve, strength laced with sorrow, brilliance shrouded in quiet. You must become something they interpret, not just observe. Think of the people who haunt your mind the longest. They weren't the most visible. They were the most unresolved. Their myth lingered because it never fully closed. Your myth must do the same. This doesn't mean abandoning authenticity. It means amplifying the truth until it becomes legend. Choose your symbolism, the way you dress, the stories you allow to circulate, the signature phrase, the mysterious background, the impossible to confirm rumor. Each piece is a brushstroke on the painting that is your myth, because when people no longer describe you in facts, but in metaphors, when your name becomes shorthand for something larger, you've escaped the laws of forgettability. You don't just stand out, you endure. You wanted to be seen, not just noticed in passing, but remembered, respected, felt. You were tired of being the ghost, tired of nodding on cue and laughing at jokes that never included you. Tired of watching life unfold from the social periphery, waiting for someone to grant you relevance. And now you see the truth. No one will grant it, because visibility isn't a gift, it's a conquest. But here lies the paradox, the one Machiavelli never sugarcoated. To be seen is to become a target. The moment you step from the shadows into the center, eyes turn, some with admiration, others with envy. You will be scrutinized. You will be misunderstood. Some will want you closer. Others will try to drag you down, mock what they cannot replicate, or punish what dares to break the unspoken order. This is the price. There is no rise without resistance. No presence without pressure. The ghost, for all their suffering, lives untouched, safe, unchallenged. The myth, however, lives in danger because it matters. And what matters is always at risk. But ask yourself, is safety worth invisibility? Would you rather be ignored and unjudged, or seen and unforgettable? To wield these tactics is not to become manipulative. It's to become intentional. You are not crafting illusions. You are unveiling dimensions that others never took the time to notice. You are forcing the world to look again, to see not just a body in a room, but a presence that alters it. Because when you walk in with perception as a weapon, mystery as a tool, and narrative as armor, no one can reduce you to silence again. You do not owe anyone your invisibility. You never did. So step forward, not with noise, but with gravity. Not to beg for space, but to reshape it. Not to scream, but to stand, so starkly, so deliberately, that the world has no choice but to feel your echo. You are no longer a ghost. You are the room.